Hey y'all. So beatboxing with the Jaw Harp is a little tricky because there's a lot of sounds that you can't make or make easily, but I'm going to talk over some of the basic sounds that you can make, and so you can incorporate some beatboxing into your playing and make your playing sound awesome. If you haven't already, I would make sure and check out this video that I'll link to in the description. It goes over all the basics of how to play the Jaw Harp and how to play the Jaw Harp safely. So if you haven't watched it, make sure and check it out. All right, so let's talk about some of the fundamentals that you're going to need to play the bass drum. You can't beatbox without the bass drum, but the problem is that your typical bass drum sound that you'll hear while beatboxing is, isn't that a lovely sound? The thing is about that is that you're putting your lips together to make that P or B sound, and that's kind of incompatible with playing the Jaw Harp because the Jaw Harp, you pull this striker back and that striker is actually going in between your teeth, like that, and that's a problem because you can't make that P or B sound at the same time. And if you try and make the P or B sound, the striker's in the way. You have to strike at the same time, and so you're trying to like close your lips to make that P sound, and that striker's going in between your, that's called snag city, where the striker's gonna snag your lips, it's gonna pinch, it's just not gonna work. But there are some bass drum sounds that you can make. Let's talk about the most straightforward one. Do. So you can use your diaphragm to push out air, and if I just do that without making any sound, it sounds like this. That also will work if you just use your diaphragm to push out air. But you can also add some vocal to it by making the sound do, and at the same time pushing air out with your diaphragm. Ha, ha, ha. Kind of sounds like toe. That's a great sound. I like to use instead though the glottal bass drum because it allows you to do multiple things at the same time. And the glottal bass drum is a little bit tricky for a lot of people, and it's kind of uncomfortable to play, especially at the beginning. But the way you make the sound, I cover it more in depth in this video. But in the meantime, I'll give you just a quick rundown. You're basically, you're making that swallowing motion when you drink a large glass of water. Ooh. That sound that comes down from down here. Ooh, 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 ooh. You don't have to have a large Adam's apple. Anyone can do this with practice. You make that swallowing sound and then you focus in on it and make it nice and clear. Ooh. I like to use that as in combination with some nasal tone, if I can do it, and it kind of makes that more sound like a bass drum, and it gives it a really pleasing sound. So that works really well in combination with the Jaw Harp. So those are two options for bass drum. Well, three options. You can use the forceful diaphragm out. You can use the forceful diaphragm out along with the tone do. Or you can use the glottal bass drum. Now let's talk about the hi-hat. As a beatboxer, you would typically make the sound tss. Luckily, will work perfectly for you as a Jaw Harp player because you can easily make that tongue sound because it doesn't interfere with your lips. You can also make the hi-hat kind of the close sound. You can even inhale with that chuk sound, so in, out, in, out. But to add on to the hi-hat, if you want to make your sound more fat, you can use your air more as you make the hi-hat sound. Typically when I beatbox, I don't put out a lot of air when I'm making hi-hat. But if you want the Jaw Harp to project the sound more, you can make it pushing more air out. So I'll give you an example. So this is without very much air. And this is pushing out a little bit more air. You notice that I had to change the sound because I was actually having to breathe in. It all depends on what sound you're going for. The next crucial sound is your snare. Now, this is again hard because sometimes you want to make a snare like this. There's that PSH sound again, which doesn't really work for standard jaw harp playing. But what you can do is, and it's a little hard because you are trying to project, and so you might have to use some diaphragm to push out some or suck in some air to get that snare to project better. Let me just show you what it sounds like if you just make the K. I dropped my harp. Let me just show you what it sounds like when I just make the K sound. That's me putting outward K and inward K. Now I'm going to use my diaphragm to kind of make that case, that snare, pop a little bit more. Besides the inward K, you can also do the sound, KSH, inward, outward. Those are some ways you can play the jaw harp with standard jaw harp playing, which I mean to say is when you put the jaw harp against your teeth, which is normally how you play. But you can also play muted style where you have the jaw harp against your lips like this. It's not going to be as loud, not nearly as loud, but you can really make some awesome sounds. And what I found for a small jaw harp like this one, you can actually move your lips from the edge, this edge right here, towards the inner frame over here. What that allows you to do is actually allows your lips to do some standard beatboxing. So it's not going to be as clean sounding as when you play the jaw harp standard, but there's really a lot of cool opportunity there. As a warning, I wouldn't do that with a big harp like this one because that just the way that this reed works, it's not going to play as well. And also if you do get your lips snagged in the jaw harp, that's going to be painful. So I would only try that with a small harp where the reed is a lot more forgiving. If you haven't already, I would make sure and subscribe. This is what this channel is all about, learning about awesome instruments, and I'm going to share way more about several different instruments with you. So if you'd like to join me on the journey, make sure and subscribe. All right, so now you have the bass, the hi-hat, the snare. You pretty much have everything you need to start beatboxing with the jaw harp. So let's try and put this all together. Rhythm number 1, boots and cats. Don't leave home without it. We're gonna do the bass drum, a hi-hat, and a snare, like this. And I'm gonna use the inward K and the glottal bass drum throughout this. Putting that together, you get this. A little bit faster. Rhythm number 2. Bass drum, jiggity, ksh, tss. Bass drum, jiggity, ksh, tss. A little bit faster. A little bit faster. Rhythm number 3. I'm going to show you the bass rhythm, and then we're going to build on that by adding different jaw harp rhythms. Now let's add some jaw harp. I'm just going to do the first one on every quarter note. Now we're going to sync up the bass drum with the twangs. Now we're going to add the jaw harp on every 8th note. So as you can see, the possibilities are truly endless. If you have any other ideas of what to do to combine beatboxing with a jaw harp, let me know in the comments. I'd love to read them. If you haven't already, I would make sure and check out this video. Thanks for watching.